I wanted to make sure my vote is in, signed, sealed, and delivered.
I think the Republican Party has gone down the wrong path.
I don't think as a human being he has a great personality, but I like the issues and I like what he stands for.
Those are just a few of the more than 60 million voters who have cast their ballots early this year. So what do we know about this big slice of the electorate that's already made their decision? Let's bring in some experts, Tom Bonier and John Couvillion. They join us now. Tom's a veteran Democratic political strategist and the senior advisor at the political data organization Target Smart. John's a Republican political strategist and founder of JMC Analytics and Polling. Tom, let's start with you. This early vote has historically benefited Democrats, but it looks a little different this year, and people are having difficulty getting a measure for it. What do you make?
Yeah, well, there's a good reason for that. So 2020 was a unique year, to put it mildly. We know the impact the pandemic had. We had a mass expansion of the early voting around the country, and we know Democrats were much more COVID conscious, so they were much more likely to vote before Election Day. We're seeing a lot of vote reversion back to how people voted before the pandemic. We have to remember at the same time in 2020, there was a mass evacuation of Republicans from the early vote. Donald Trump told them that voting by mail was fraudulent. So Republicans have been putting a lot of effort into getting their votes out early. We're seeing some minor movement towards Republicans in these battleground states, but perhaps not as big as they hoped or expected.
John, the election officials in Georgia are calling their early vote record-shattering. What do you think about these numbers and the efforts by the Trump campaign to flip Georgia back to red?
So the interesting thing about Georgia, and this is something that I have seen in other Deep South states where you can track the racial component of early voting, is that Black early voting is noticeably down relative to 2020. And where that matters the most, of course, is in Georgia and North Carolina, where Kamala Harris absolutely needs a robust Black turnout to be able to carry those states.
Let's look at broader then, John. What other states should give the Trump campaign pause and which ones should make them optimistic?
So what's interesting is when I look at across the country, what's actually happening is that overall early voting is down relative to this point in time in 2020. More specifically, in 2020, I showed that 77 million had early voted at this point, and there was a 17-point Democratic spread. As of this morning, we're looking at 64 million early votes with a 3-point Democratic spread. Now, with regards to the specific states, the ones that I think the Trump campaign can feel more comfortable about, I think Arizona is actually a good example where you're talking about a Democratic lead of +4 that has gone to a Republican lead of +8. Similarly, in Nevada, Democrat +6 to Republican +5. North Carolina, Democrat +8 to Republican +2. The only thing that they would be concerned about, but this is not a heavy early voting state, would be Pennsylvania, where the Democrats had a 46-point lead at this point in time in 2020. Right now, they have a 23-point lead. And Pennsylvania is the kind of state that even with the expansion of mail-in voting in 2020, thanks to the pandemic, you still have a culture where over 80% of the vote is cast on Election Day.
Tom, so much of the recent polling in Pennsylvania has that race estimated as tied. So how do you read the early vote in Pennsylvania and how the Harris campaign, what they have to do to keep that Pennsylvania vote intact and keep the whole blue wall intact?
Well, as John just mentioned, what we've seen is a closing of the gap. Democrats just absolutely dominated the early vote in Pennsylvania 4 years ago by almost a 3-to-1 margin. Again, Donald Trump has told his supporters it's okay to vote by mail this time. You're seeing a lot of them coming back. The reason why I think Democrats still feel good about what they're seeing is almost 50% of the Republicans who have voted by mail so far were just Election Day voters last time around, meaning Republicans aren't creating new votes out of the vote by mail. They're really just converting Election Day voters to early voters. And in fact, when you look at the new registrants, people who have registered to vote in Pennsylvania over the last 4 years, Democrats still have a 20-point advantage among those early voters.
Tom, I want to quickly touch on either Michigan or North Carolina. We have reports out of Michigan about robust turnout so far, and North Carolina was brought up by John. Do you have a read on either of those two states?
Yeah, Michigan's a fascinating one to me. We expected to see the vote shift at least slightly Republican in every state because of everything I've mentioned. In Michigan, our models are actually showing the early vote leaning more Democratic than it was at this point in 2020. We've seen record-breaking early voting numbers in the early in-person in Detroit. We're seeing big numbers from black seniors, especially in Wayne County. So again, I think the Harris campaign likely feels pretty good about those numbers in Michigan.
John and Tom, we thank you for your time. John in Baton Rouge and Tom from our D.C. newsroom right near my desk. Thank you both. Appreciate it.